In the first half, we're fighting 4 Ruin Guard-like enemies, which I'm sure we're all very comfortable with fighting at this point. But the catch is that they all spawn one at a time, which makes for a pretty long fight. They do have quite a bit of health, especially the Ruin Drake, so this half does require a pretty demanding amount of continuous DPS. They also periodically receive a buff from this pulsing electro aura, which significantly decreases the damage they take. I recommend using teams that deal primarily pyro, cryo, or dendro damage so you can cleanse this electro buff as quickly as possible. As usual, national variants and hyper bloom teams are great for continuously outputting high single target damage. I personally like hyper bloom a little more on this side because pyro tends to be more useful in the second half, so I usually reserve my national teams for that half instead. Freeze teams can also work here, but I actually found that the pulsing electro aura is pretty disruptive and it can get in the way of keeping those enemies permanently frozen, which ends up hurting our DPS quite a bit. I did have to pull out some of my strongest freeze teams to clear this half in a reasonable amount of time. This fight is also a really good test of how consistently you can execute your rotations back to back. Ideally, you're looking to finish this half with 4 clean rotations, spending on average 1 rotation or about 20 seconds on each enemy. Since the Ruin Drake does have more health than the Ruin Guards, you might end up spending maybe 3/4 of a rotation on each Ruin Guard, and spending 1.5 rotations on the Ruin Drake instead. But overall, if you are able to cleanly execute 4 rotations like this, you're looking at roughly an 8:35 clear time, which leaves you plenty of time for the second half. The second half is much less demanding in terms of DPS, so it is okay to spend a little more time here, but I would still aim for at least an 820 clear on this half if you want to safely 3-star this chamber. That having been said, the second half is a bit more mechanically challenging in that you need to group the enemies effectively if you want a fast clear. If you have Sucrose, Kazuha, or Venti, definitely prioritize putting them on this half. I'll be showing how to group each wave of enemies using Sucrose because I do think Kazuha and Venti are a bit more straightforward to use. For the first wave, we're fighting 3 Whopperflowers, which are kind of notorious for moving around a lot and having very high resistances, making them one of the most annoying enemies to fight in my opinion. We're actually going to start this fight facing the front of the arena instead of the back like we usually do. As soon as we start the stage, I'm going to run straight to the front of the arena and I'm targeting this little triangular tile on the floor to go stand on. If we wait here for a couple of seconds, all 3 Whopperflowers will pop up in front of us, which gives us the perfect position to sandwich them against the wall using Sucrose's burst. For the second wave, we're fighting 3 Abyss Mages. 1 Pyro, 1 Electro, and 1 Cryo. This is why I mentioned Pyro is a little more valuable in the second half, because it can counter both the Electro and Cryo shields, which leaves you only with the Pyro shield to deal with. Naturally, this lends itself to a Vaporized team that includes Sucrose, which is a perfect fit for the standard national team. I'm using Melt Rosaria instead because Xingqiu is already taken by the first half, and Rosaria is better suited for AoE damage anyway. This does mean that the Pyro shield will be a bit harder for us to break, so this is where we can really use swirls to our advantage. The Electro Abyss Mage will almost always teleport to us right after spawning, so I want to try to position him between the Cryo and Pyro Abyss Mages, and this way all 3 of them are grouped up nicely. From here, if we use Sucrose's abilities, she will trigger multiple swirl reactions, and the Electro swirls are going to do most of the work for us in breaking the Pyro shield. Then we can use Rosaria's abilities to chip it down a little more, and in the meantime the other Abyss Mages will fall to our AoE damage. For the last wave, we're fighting 4 Eremites, and we're also going to pull these guys to the front of the arena. A lot of them have these dashing attacks that can cause them to stray in different directions, so fighting them close against the wall really helps to limit their range of movement and keep them together as much as possible. Some players did ask whether this half can be cleared without Sucrose. I think this is a completely valid request. Even though she is a 1.0 character, she isn't part of the Star Glitter store, which makes it surprisingly difficult to get her if you haven't been playing for a very long time. This half can be cleared with Anemo Traveler instead, which of course everybody does have access to. It is a little harder to pull off, so I'll run through that real quick. Keep in mind that this means you can't use Dendro Traveler in the first half, so if you still want to use a Hyper Bloom team in the first half, you'll need a different source of Dendro application. For the Whopperflowers, we're going to take the exact same approach. When they pop up in front of us, I open with Anemo Traveler's Burst to pull them together and lock them up and start setting up my damage over time abilities. You'll notice that her burst does lift them up pretty high in the air, which means things like Xiangling's burst can't hit them during this time. That's okay because we're just setting up for now and our real damage is going to come in after they land. After Xiangling and Rosaria's bursts have been set up, I follow up with Anemo Traveler's hold skill to make sure all 3 Whopperflowers can't escape our AoE. For the second wave, we'll be doing the same thing where we pull the Electro Abyss Mage next to the Pyro one so we can swirl their shields together. I'll be using Anemo Traveler's hold skill to do this, and again finishing off with Rosaria's burst. In the meantime, I switch my focus to the Cryo Abyss Mage to start working on his shield, which is much easier to break since we have plenty of pyro damage. Once all 3 shields are down, now we can use Anemo Traveler's burst again to group them all up and finish them off with AoE damage. I'm making sure to position myself on the inside of the arena, facing the front wall when I use her burst, so I don't send them off to some random faraway place. For the last wave, same exact approach. We pull the Eremites to the front of the arena, and after most of them have gathered here, I again position my Anemo Traveler's burst to group and push them towards the front of the arena. So for those who are stuck on this chamber because you don't have Sucrose or another form of grouping, this is one approach you could use to still get through it. Finally, let's walk through some team comps. In the first half, my 4-star setup is the standard Hyper Bloom team I used for Chambers 3 and 2 as well, just a really solid team for single target damage. Obviously, you can upgrade this team with any 5 stars that you have. One variation that I enjoyed a lot is an Alhaitham Hyper Bloom team. Combining Kuki's Hyper Bloom damage with Alhaitham's personal Dendro damage really put out some impressive DPS. As I mentioned, National variants are also very strong here. You can't really go wrong with National whenever you need high single target damage. This does mean that you'll need a different Pyro solution or a non-Pyro solution for the second half. If you have Hu Tao, she's also great for this half. Obviously one of the strongest single target damage dealers in the game, and one really nice thing about her is that despite being a pyro damage dealer, she doesn't require Bennett, which means you can still run some national variant in the second half. In the second half, we already went through my 4-star setup pretty extensively. Melt Rosaria both with the Sucrose variant and the Anemo Traveler variant. Freeze teams can also work quite well here. They're great for keeping the Whopperflowers and Eremites in place since those enemies do like to move around a lot. The only issue is going to be the Cryo Abyss Mage, so you really are depending on the Electro and Pyro swirls to take care of that Cryo shield for you. In general, most teams with Kazuha or Venti work really well in this second half. Overloaded Kazuha, Hyper Carry Raiden, Morgana, almost any team you can think of with one of those premier Anemo characters will really trivialize this half. And lastly, Xiao is another great option. I don't have Xiao unfortunately, but his plunge attacks cover a huge area and it does deal AoE Anemo damage, so it's great whenever you need to mix Abyss Mage shields like this. Those are all the tips I have to share for this chamber. I know for a lot of players it's probably not as difficult as the other 2 chambers, but I hope this is still helpful for those who are just getting into floor 12 or may have been struggling with the grouping in the second half. The builds will follow right after this, and as always, thank you so much for watching.